The future of English football has arrived in Germany, and it's going to turn him into a superstar. In Jadon Sancho, Dortmund have recruited their very first Englishman, having found Ousmane Dembele in French Ligue 1 and sold him for a profit of tens of millions of pounds. BVB have now stolen another wildly talented teenager from under English noses for half of what they paid for the Frenchman. And Pep is furious. And what's more, Jadon Sancho could prove to be just as valuable as Mr. Dembele. It's early days, but as Dortmund have already given him the number 7 shirt vacated by the Frenchman, the German Giants clearly think they've got another superstar in yellow and black. And those English clubs like Chelsea or Manchester City, who are hoarding the best teenage talent on the planet, but not playing them,
better watch out.
Jadon Sancho is Dortmund's next big thing. And we're going to tell you why the club's coaches, players and attitude make the Westfalen Stadium the perfect place to turn his potential into star power. British players are famously reluctant to leave the island behind and test their abilities abroad. But this summer, young talents are kissing Queen and country goodbye and heading to England's greatest footballing enemy. Reece Oxford, Caelan Hines and Ryan Kent all made the switch from Premier League benches to Bundesliga pitches this summer, realising what football nerds have known for years, that nowhere is better at giving young players a chance than Germany. And further proof came right on the transfer deadline, when BVB signed one of the country's hottest youth talents from one of the country's biggest, richest clubs. Jadon Sancho has been on radars around the continent since this summer's European Under-17 Championship, where he took teams apart for fun. He scored 5 goals and assisted 5 more in England's run to the final, and was named Player of the Tournament. His combination of close control, trickery and raw pace on the left wing made him a nightmare for Europe's best young defenders. Germany coach Christian Vuk even said Sancho and his teammate Phil Foden were the best players he'd ever seen at that age. Back at Manchester City, chairman Khaldoon Al-Mubarak talked up Sancho's chances of making the first team. But with Sterling and Sané ahead of him and the club making moves for Alexis Sanchez, it was time to chase game time somewhere else. Enter Borussia Dortmund. The Black and Yellows have been the masters of developing young talent in recent years. Unfortunately for them, they've also been robbed of their best players time after time, Monsieur Dembele being the latest example. But his departure meant there was a position open at Dortmund. Wanted, left winger, must be young, fast, talented. The situation couldn't have been more perfect for Sancho. And if there were any doubts that Dortmund was serious about his first team potential, they handed him Dembele's number 7 shirt. Now, doesn't that sound better than being City's number 48? Dortmund's new 007 can look to his predecessor's incredible rise for inspiration. Here are the basics of that transaction. Dembele signed for Dortmund in a £13 million deal. Just 1 year later, Barcelona made him the 2nd most expensive player of all time. Dortmund profit on paper, £84 million. And there are plenty of others who can show exactly what this club can do for a young player. On the right flank, Christian Pulisic has racked up more than 50 appearances, and he's not even 19 years old yet. So let's look at the keys to developing these crazy talented youngsters for both an on and off-field return. The process, in simple terms: 1. Identify the talent. 2. Play them. And 3. Cash in. In giving the job to Peter Bosz, it appears Dortmund are very conscious of what is at stake here. If you're not Real Madrid, Manchester City, PSG or Barcelona, who can go and drop £100 million on a fully formed superstar, then attracting and developing talent simply must be the business a club is in. The numbers from the last window tell us that Monaco and Dortmund know this and have well and truly cashed in. Dortmund have long been ahead of this curve, but in recruiting Peter Bosz, have sought to streamline this money-making machine. Bosz brought a string of youngsters through at Ajax, reaching the Europa League final last season, and the bosses at Dortmund are clearly hoping he can continue their tradition of creating stars. Now, Bosz will want to ease Sancho in during his debut season, but he may be forced to call on the prodigy sooner than expected. With regular left wingers Marco Reus and Andre Schürrle both struggling with injuries early in the campaign, and Dortmund battling on 3 fronts, Sancho can expect to at least make the bench in the coming weeks, something he never achieved at City. Stereotype warning: German efficiency at fixing weaknesses. Like every young player, Sancho still has a few things he needs to work on. He's previously said his left foot needs to improve, and that's bound to be an issue if he's supposed to be supplying Aubameyang. Luckily, the Bundesliga has some of the best technical coaches in the world to help him iron out his flaws, and Sancho's teammates will push him forward too. Who better to teach him about fast, direct wing play than Marco Reus, at least when he's fit? And who better to teach him about what it takes to make it as a teenager than rising stars Christian Pulisic and Julian Weigl. So the player, Sancho, is now in the best possible environment to get the most out of his potential. And the club, Dortmund, is now in possession of an incredible talent and potentially one hell of an asset. So then, is this just the beginning of the great talent Brexit? Let us know. And if you want more stories like this one, do the right thing and subscribe as well.